Hi, so in this video I'd like to talk about the leveling process and Blizzard's design for it. What prompted it was a post that was responded to by Ian Hazakostas, which is not quite on the same thing, but I'm going to post a link to it below anyway, so if any of you have got any insight to it, then Blizzard are asking for responses to that. I'm going to read a first few paragraphs because it's relevant to things I'm going to talk about, but what I want to talk about is not so much what's gone wrong with the pre-patch and leveling, but what's gone wrong with leveling. So in the first paragraph, what Ian Hazakostas said is he was addressing the idea that the Blizzard aren't communicating on this issue. He says, if any of the communication thus far on the lack of visible action rather, has given the impression that we don't consider the issues raised in this thread and others like it to be a problem, I'd like to emphatically state that nothing could be farther from the truth. Now, I do accept what they're saying there, not because I accept that if they don't say something that's acceptable, it's not, but it is nonetheless a feature these days of Blizzard that they don't really discuss things. So it is entirely possible that they genuinely do consider something important without actually saying anything about it because of that non-engagement policy that they now have with the community. Second point says, at this point, the feel and pacing of the level up experience is a top priority for the team. We made deliberate changes to the feel of combat 6 months ago in 7.3.5, moving away from a world where low-level players, especially with heirlooms, could often kill outdoor enemies in 3 or 4 seconds, and where dungeon mobs died so quickly that a caster with a long wind-up might not even get a single spell off. Those changes were controversial at the time, but we stand by them as an improvement to the overall pacing of the game. Now, I'm just going to leave it there. There are a couple of things I want to say here. First of all, when it comes to heirlooms, that just sounds to me mad. That statement just... Some of the things I'm going to talk about here are basically opinions, some more objective. This one I just think is objectively madness. What is an heirloom? First of all, heirlooms are for veteran players. To be able to afford them, you have to have sort of leveled up at least once. Okay, sure, if you're a brand new player, I suppose in theory you could get a WoW token and buy your own, or a rich benefactor, maybe there's a friend who's been playing it for a while, they give you the gold to go off and get them. But that's very, very unlikely. In all probability, the people using heirlooms have already leveled through the game once, and the reason they've got the heirlooms is to reduce the time it takes to do so again. That's what they're for. The key thing about heirlooms, yes, okay, it's nice to have these bits of armor that scale up with you, so you don't have to use the quest rewards, although that is removing then for a piece of the content of the game. But ultimately what you've got them for is the experience bonus. That's there to reduce the amount of time it takes to level up. So for them, Blizzard to say that, especially with heirlooms, they don't like the fact that we could kill mobs too quickly because, you know, it increased the pacing of the game. It's a bit like, okay, we've given you these heirlooms so that you can reduce the amount of time it takes you to level up. But we don't really want you reducing the amount of time it takes to level up. What? Really? So that's just mad. Anyway. On to the next one. It says, those changes were controversial at the time, but we stand by them, blah, blah, blah. I would say they're still controversial now, because ultimately here's the problem. Now, the first point is rather more subjective. What Blizzard want us to do when we're leveling is quest. But the way questing works exclusively now, which didn't used to be the case, is you go to a hub and you get a load of quests. And then you go around the general area and you murder or click on things until all the quests say they're complete. And then you go back and you turn them all in, and either you'll get another collection, go out and do the same sort of thing again, or you'll get a breadcrumb quest that takes you to the next hub where you'll collect a load of quests and do the same sort of thing. And you do that for 110 levels before you get to the new content, as of a few weeks' time, of course. So at the moment you could argue 100 levels before you're doing the current content, but that's only a couple of weeks away. So then you've got 110 levels of this. Just go into a hub, mindlessly, after a while you're not even going to read the quests in all likelihood. Some will, but most won't. It's just grabbing things and killing things and clicking on things and grabbing things and killing things and clicking on things all the way up. And it takes a hell of a long time. Now, I preferred the older versions where you'd pick them up and then you'd be travelling somewhere and you'd pick up some quests on your travels as well. and you're going on a whole exploration, and you know, while you were going to a place to do a thing, you'd come across someone else who had a quest. Oh, you do this, get sidetracked, and it was all a lovely experience for me. But that's personal. That's my opinion. But what I think is more objective is the fact that in an MMO, of course, you've got different people playing it, and different people like different things. So what you want is a variety of content. Now, for Legion, Blizzard have knocked it out of the park. I think a lot of people agree with a decent variety of content, and it looks like that variety is going to expand in Battle for Azeroth as well. Great. That's for level cap. Now, for leveling, you've only really got 3 types of content. You can quest, you can do dungeons, you can do battlegrounds after like level 10, level 15 for dungeons. Well, in terms of queuing up at any rate. So that's not a huge variety, but it is a variety. It is a range of content that you can do. The problem is that Blizzard only want you doing one of those, which is the questing. So they're telling us what to do. Well, what about people who don't want to do the questing? Or what if people just don't want to do it exclusively? Because you used to be able to level up quite efficiently in dungeons. A lot of people did that. And then what they did with the 7.3.5 changes is they deliberately reduced the amount of experience you could do for doing the dungeons. First of all, they reduced it if you went in with someone with too high level, so you couldn't just get someone to boost you through it. Well, boo-hoo, that's not going to affect too many people. It affected me, but not too many. But then what they said is, well, we're still not happy. So they started reducing the amount of experience you're getting from other aspects of it, like the bonus XP at the end of the dungeon, for example. To the point where now it's really not worth the time in most cases doing those dungeons. So, and they did that deliberately to prevent people doing dungeons to level. But it's a piece of content that's there. It's in the game. Why would they want to dissuade people from doing it? And Battlegrounds, apart from during the old call to action weekends, has never been great for experience anyway. So what if you've got someone who wants to do a mixture of, say, questing and dungeons? They want to do some questing, but be queuing up for dungeons. When they get into a dungeon, do the dungeon. Now, the zone scaling, which has its downsides, one downside of zones, I mean, I'm in favour of it, but one downside of zone scaling is your character doesn't really feel like it's growing in power. Because when you level up, you're no longer stronger than the pig you're beating its brains out. It scales up as well, effectively. So there's that downside, but it's a price worth paying, in my opinion, because it allows you to do the following. So you're doing your quests, then your dungeon pops, you go into your dungeon. Now, in the old days, by the time you come out, you're a level or 2 higher up, depends on, you know, what sort of dungeon, what quests it had in it, stuff like that. So you come out now, and then you find that the quests that you were on aren't actually worth that much experience anymore. You might as well just abandon them, go to a new area where it's higher experience. Now you don't have to. You can get into the dungeon, come out, everything's where it was. It's worth proportionally of your level the same amount of experience it was before, because everything is scaled up with you. So that's fantastic. You don't have to break your immersion in that quest. You know, you can carry on doing that quest line. If you find that quest line interesting and you want to stay in that zone for longer, then that's fine. You keep staying there. But the problem now is it's no longer worth signing up for the dungeon, because it's not worth the experience. And this is fundamentally what the problem is with leveling. Never mind what's happened with the pre-patch. It's Blizzard telling people how they should play the game. It's like, we've given you these 3 pieces of content, dungeons, quests, and battlegrounds. But we don't want you doing the dungeons and the battlegrounds, even if you find those more fun. So we're going to incentivize you not to do them. If you're interested in leveling up quickly. I mean, if you're not, it doesn't matter, do what you want. But you could do that anyway. It's the same as it goes back to heirlooms. If people didn't want to speed up their process of leveling, well, they wouldn't have to wear the heirlooms. You get gear from quests anyway, and from doing dungeons. Just use that gear. That's good enough. That's fine. And sometimes, of course, Blizzard do have to get involved in terms of player behaviour, because there are times in an MMO, it's important to note that you don't want, you know, if the way someone wants to enjoy a game means ruining the experience for someone else, well, that's not really on. And that's the benefit of War Mode, for example, that they've brought out now. Absolutely fantastic, because I didn't find it at all fun on that character, which you can see behind me. First time I went on that, I was leveling up, and someone just a higher level just straight up one-shot me. that wasn't fun. What did they get out of it? And what did I get out of it? It just wasn't fun. So it stopped me playing it. I just stopped playing because I thought, well, what's the point? Even at level cap, I mean, even on my main, it's more of an inconvenience when people used to try and gank me, because most of the time I would kill them on my merry way. But it still took time to do that. And occasionally there'd be enough of them that I wouldn't be able to, and I'd be the one having to corpse run. And that's just annoying. So they brought in war mode, and people are loving it. I know a lot of people are saying they're having a fantastic time running around in war mode. They think it's great because they're sharded together with other people who also want to do that content. Fantastic. I'm also having a fantastic time, I have to say, playing with war mode off. So there's a classic example of where Blizzard have gone, okay, well, there's the way some people are playing isn't fun for others, so we'll do this thing, and then people can do what they want to do. And that's great. But what they're doing with the leveling is they're forcing people into a mode of behaviour that isn't moving it away from harming anyone. You know, so they say they don't want people killing mobs in a few hits with heirlooms. Who's that harming? Who is that harming? It's not harming any other players. No one else gives a shit. In fact, the quicker they can kill those mobs and bugger off out of my way, the better, quite frankly. Dungeons. If people want to do more dungeons, who's that harming? It's not like they need lots of people to be in the same zone anyway, which would be unrealistic. The game is now so old with so many zones that you can't have quests there. Because you used to have quests where you'd come along and it'd be a group, you'd need a group to be able to do it, or you'd have to miss it out. But there'd be people in the area you'd sort of say, well, join a group together and do this quest. Now that doesn't happen. It's so old a game, and it's, as I say, so many. You wouldn't find enough people at any one time, unless it was peak times. Maybe even then, probably not, where there were other players about. But you don't need to. There are no quests like that anymore, so it doesn't matter. So again, it's not harming anyone if people at a certain level are more likely to be in a dungeon than leveling in the zones. It's not harming other players. Same with Battlegrounds. Who would it be harming if Battlegrounds rewarded you an amount of experience commensurate with the amount of time you're in there, roughly speaking, or the average amount of time people would be in there? You know, because that's what it should be like. You should be able to do any mixture you like of leveling in questing, dungeons, or Battlegrounds and get roughly, obviously it depends, but roughly the same amount of experience for each one for the amount of time you're spending in it. Well, what the hell's wrong with that? It allows people to play the way they want. It allows them to mix it up if they want, to vary the content if they want. And that's surely got to be the betterment of the whole company, because then those players are more likely to persist with it and to get all the way to level 110 before they can even start the new BFA content, the end game, which is what a lot of people focus on. But anyway, those are my thoughts on that one. As I say, there's a link to the original post below. They're not interested in any views about the design philosophy, but if you do have any thoughts about what's gone wrong specifically with the pre-patch, then I'm sure they'll gratefully receive those comments. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share with others who might also be interested. And until next time, I'll see you later.